A Place Called Perfect, Chapter 34. Choices. "Edward's up to something," Boy said, rising gingerly to his feet. We have to follow him." "What do you mean?" Violet said. "We're winning. I bet Edward's desperate to save what he can. The eyeballs, your dad, Immaculate. I bet he's gone to the ghost estate," Boy said quickly. "But which way, Boy?" Violet asked. Boy shrugged. "We have to split up. I'll go by the opticians, you go by No Man's Land. If you see him, just follow behind, okay? I'll meet you at the estate entrance, then we'll decide what to do." Boy spoke with urgency and, though Violet didn't want him to be, he was right. They had to split up. She waited on the footpath as Boy crossed the road, heading towards the Archer's Emporium. He was still clutching his shoulder. She was just about to head off in the other direction when he turned and called her name. "Violet! Be safe, okay?" She could only manage a nod. Anything else would crack her voice, and she wasn't crying in front of Boy. Not now. Taking a deep breath, she turned and raced towards No Man's Land. The chaos of the battle had taken over Edward Street, and she narrowly missed being hit by a flying chair as she turned onto Archer's Avenue. She hadn't said good luck to Boy. What if something happened to him? Lost in thought, she was turning onto Rag Lane when she spotted a figure just ahead. She pulled back behind the bend and watched. A short, stout man passed through the gateway into No Man's Land. It was Edward. She followed him at a distance, down through the arch and onto Forgotten Road. No Man's Land was empty. The streets were a mess. The insides of homes lay outside front doors where only hours before people had searched wildly for anything they could use in a battle. Violet had even seen some with cooking pot helmets on their heads. Now the place was lonely, like a warm seat someone had just left, though the crashes and cries of the battle imperfect seeped in over the stone walls. Edward moved as fast as his stout figure allowed him, up Forgotten Road towards the orphanage. Then he scuttled down to the right along one of the lanes, as if he was heading for the river. Suddenly he ducked left and came to a halt in the middle of a dimly lit, dingy back alley. Violet poked her head down there before, but Boy had warned her never to explore it. He'd said it was a place where bad things happened. Every window on the alley was broken, and rubbish was piled knee-deep against the graffitied walls. Rats scampered in and out of the waste as if it was their playground. Holding her nose to block out the stench, she crouched down behind a bin of rotting food as Edward disappeared inside a derelict building. He vanished round the back of a battered iron door which had the words Erebus Emporium sprayed in red over a set of crossbones. Torn and tattered posters patterned the broken windows with headlines like "Passion for Poison" or "Mad About Murder." Violet's heart pounded. A few minutes later the door screeched on its hinges and Edward Archer returned to the alley, carefully carrying a small, slim object. "Pretty pistol," he smiled, stroking the long black neck of the deadly weapon. "I'm sure you could cause some damage, my dear." What was he doing with a gun? Violet lost her balance and tipped against the bin, rattling it. Edward shoved the pistol into his pocket and looked round the empty street. She ducked and waited. Sweat raced down her forehead and stung her eyes. She held her breath. A rat ran out from behind some of the bins and scuttled down the road. Satisfied, Edward continued out of the alleyway and turned left, heading towards the river. He was going to the ghost estate. Violet needed something. She couldn't go unarmed now that he had a gun. She raced back out onto Forgotten Road. Surely she'd find something in the contents that were scattered outside the houses. She was busy rifling through a cardboard box filled with small shovels when a swish of material caught her eye. She stopped dead and turned. Rose Brown stood in the middle of the empty road. The hem of her apron swung a little as she moved nervously from foot to foot. "Ma'am?" Violet whispered, her voice trembling. Rose didn't answer. "Ma'am," she said, running to Rose's side. "Ma'am, what are you doing here?" Rose looked at Violet, her eyes blank. "Ma'am, it's me, Violet." "Oh, were you speaking to me, little girl? I'm sorry, I thought you were talking to your mother. I suppose I am the only one in this strange place," Rose replied, looking around in a daze. Ma'am, please, it's me," Violet choked, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry, you must be confused." "You can't have forgotten me already. You can't, ma'am, please. I only left a few days ago." Her mother eased away from Violet. "I don't know how I ended up in this place," she stuttered, turning her back on her daughter. "I was walking up from the bookshop. Someone bumped against me and my glasses fell off. Suddenly there were all these people around and they were fighting and it made me nervous. Then I saw children coming out from a lane. It looked quieter than the street. I'd never noticed before. Isn't that odd? So I walked down here and... It's no man's land, ma'am. It's where I've been. I've missed you so much." "Please," Rose interrupted, "I'd rather you didn't call me that. What would your real mother say?" "Have you hit your head, dear? Maybe it's this place. It's very confusing." Violet searched her mother's face for some recognition, something that told her that she hadn't been forgotten. Rose began to back away. "Do you happen to know how to get out of here? I have to get to the shop. I ran out of eggs, you see. You can't make a Madeira cake without eggs." She laughed nervously. "I'll get William," Violet said suddenly. "That's what I'll do. I'll get William. He'll fix the Reimaginator and then he'll fix you. I have your imagination, ma'am. I left it at Merrill's. We couldn't fix you then because you were on the other side of town, though I really wanted to. I'm so sorry, ma'am." Violet's eyes welled with tears. "I think you've banged your head, dear. Anyway, it was lovely to meet you, but I must be on my way." "I can help you get out of here," Violet blurted desperately. Please follow me." Rose looked around cautiously and after a little hesitation followed her daughter. They were just near the arch when a loud bang shook the streets. Violet and Rose jumped in unison. "My goodness, that sounded like a gunshot," Rose gasped, her hands cupping her mouth. It had to be Edward. Boy, her dad, Immaculate, William, their faces all flooded her mind. What was she doing? She was about to abandon them all. The only way to save Perfect and her family was by working together. She couldn't be selfish. "Ma'am," she said firmly, "you have to stay here. There's trouble in Perfect. I have to go, but I'll be back for you, I promise." "I'm not your mother, little girl. Please stop calling me that." "I'm sorry. I'm sorry," Violet stuttered. It's the Archers. They asked me to find you. They said you make the best Madeira cake in Perfect. They want you to make some for a party they're having." "A party? How wonderful. Why didn't you say so sooner? We must get going then. I really need those eggs then now," Rose said, walking up the steps towards Rag Lane. "No," Violet shouted. "No, they said to wait by the steps. They are getting the eggs delivered here. The shop is closed for Christmas." "Closed for Christmas? But it's only September." "Oh, Christmas is early this year," Violet said, pulling over an abandoned crate. "Sit on this and don't move until I come back. The Archers are very excited." "Okay, but be sure and hurry back with those eggs, won't you?" Violet nodded, then sprinted at bullet speed through the streets, slowing only to negotiate her way over the footbridge. She stopped at the entrance to the Ghost Estate. She'd promised to meet Boy there, but he was nowhere to be seen. Maybe she was too late. And that's the end of chapter 34.